something interesting is sure to happen. Well, I think you ought to tell me who you are first. Mr. Rabbit? Then why did you ask the question?
Goodness, this is quite extraordinary.
Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
But today is turning into the most curious adventure I have ever had.
A big warm welcome to our listeners again for yet another episode of the Alice in Wonderland podcast. I'm Georgia Ellis, and thank you for joining me as we explore yet another rabbit hole together. I can't wait to get curious with today's guest, Dayle Purcell. So Dayle is the co-founder of award-winning Aqui Live, and she co-founded this with her husband, and they turned their holiday house that sits on a beautiful natural spring into a business. Their still and sparkling water has been awarded gold by the Fine Water, and they recently won an award at the APVA in Paris, pitching their water up against 100 waters from all over Europe. So let's get curious and welcome Dayle.
Hello.
So glad you're here. Now, did I miss something out there when I read out your bio? Because I said has been awarded gold by the Fine Water. Did I miss something out there?
It's the Fine Water Society, and so we're members of the Fine Water Society, and annually they do a competition with fine waters.
Okay, beautiful. When I was putting your bio together, I must have inadvertently cut out that very important part. So thank you. So I have a question I ask all of my guests, and it is in relation to the story Alice in Wonderland. And I want you to imagine that I'm a 7-year-old Alice, and I am skipping my way through Wonderland, and I bump into you. And I say, who are you? What do you do? How do you make the world a better place? How would you answer that to a 7-year-old girl?
I love that question, I've got to tell you, because so often when I'm doing tastings with the water, if parents come with their children or grandparents for whatever reason, they might be in a supermarket doing their shop, and I tell my story to the children, and I do excuse myself to the parents first of all, because I want the children to understand why the water is so special. So if I were talking to 7-year-old Alice or 7-year-old Georgia, I would say to her that, did she know anything about the dinosaurs? And if she did know about the dinosaurs, then I would tell her that the dinosaurs remind her that the dinosaurs lived 75 million years ago, and that they died out 60 million years ago. But that the water that I have comes from an aquifer, which is like a big cave deep, deep, deep down in the earth, filled with water. But that is a 600 million year old aquifer called the Paleolithic basement. And that the water comes up very, very slowly, because it's only the pressure of the earth pushing it up. And it takes 2,000 years for it to come to the surface. And once it gets to the surface, then we just take what the earth has pushed up. We don't drill or bore for the water, and probably 7-year-old don't understand drills or bores, but that's how I normally finish it.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So my curiosity goes, well, how did you discover that you were, located above this? What did you call it? An aqua? Yeah. How did you know that you were located above that? What were the signs? How did you discover this water, this elixir of life?
Well, that's an interesting story too. You previously mentioned that we have our holiday house at Red Hill, and when we bought the property, the previous owner did say to us, there's a freshwater spring down in the corner. And we also found out that when we went for our permit with the council to take that water, that it was recorded back in the early 50s when they did the geographical surveys when they were going to subdivide the land, that it was noted that there's a spring there. Now, it's the only spring that's this water is the source of. And we had, when we went for our permit, the geologists from Southern Rural Waters came in and started to tell us about the spring. So the previous owner, he had used the water to irrigate his property. He told us, oh, there's a freshwater spring there, you can pump it into the dam and then you can just irrigate from that. And it was a few years before we stopped, we actually did any sort of investigation. So for the first 2 years, we did what he said. We just pumped it into the dam and used it to water our veggie patch and what have you. And then a friend of my husband, he was the first one who dipped his hand into the water and tried it, and was the one who said, this is really delicious. It's not just fresh water, it's actually mineral water. And so from there, we did analysis, we did investigation. The guys from Southern Rural Waters told us about the spring. It's about 900 metres above the aquifer, that the spring itself is that the aquifer itself is 700 metres below sea level, which is general knowledge for anyone who's interested or who's keen on sort of the study of archaeology or
Geology.
Geology. Well, more than geology, because it's the history of the land. I don't know.
Okay.
I guess archaeology is the history of artifacts in the land, but yeah, I don't know if historical geography, perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, so they were the ones who first of all informed us about the Paleolithic basement, that they informed us that the depth of it extends from Flinders all the way across the bay to Bacchus Marsh. So it's several hundred kilometres wide. The original source of the water is rain that hit the ground in New Zealand and then comes down through the soil and cracks in the tectonic plates to fill this aquifer, and it continues to fill the aquifer. But because of the size of it, it must have been filled over millennia, but it continues to be filled. So we have the land of the long white cloud to thank for the continued replenishment of the water, which keeps the volume at the point of where there's excess that has to be pushed to the surface, which continues to supply our spring.
So we can thank our New Zealand neighbours for allowing the water to go through their pristine countryside into the aquifer and down across to you guys. So are there more, I'm guessing, like I'm not a geologist, but are there more points on the planet where this water is pressed up, I'm going to say, or the pressure allows the water to come up to the surface?
Yes, there are two other places where the water comes up. One is in an area very close to us called Main Ridge, where the water comes up. It's a spring-fed creek, but the area surrounding it is with cattle and goat herds. So the water is deemed to be possibly toxic of bovine E. coli. And then the same, where another place where it comes up in Macrae, which is not very far away, and that comes up through areas with lots of old septic tanks. So human E. coli is an issue then. So neither of those other locations have water that is drinkable. And we are where we are. We have the Arthur Seat National Park on one side of us, and then on the other side of us, there's a few houses, not very many, but we're all separated by acreage, like big acreage, and there's no herds or industry or agriculture, because on the ridge that we are on, it's all covered by green wedge overlay, which means that you're not allowed to have any sort of industry of any kind. So
Yeah.
it's very
Wow.
well protected, very pristine area.
So for our listeners that are going, yeah, mineral water, water's water, you know, they turn on their tap and they get their water just free flowing from the reservoirs and dams around wherever they're living on the globe. So what makes mineral water different for those that may not be aware?
Sure. Well, mineral water is only water that comes up out of the ground, so it doesn't fall from the sky. There are still some minerals in rainwater, but not as much as what you would get from mineral water. And some people will buy water that they believe is mineral water or called spring water, which is not in Australia, but in other countries in the US and in Europe, actually is a legal term with specific quantities of minerals in it to be able to be called spring water or mineral water. In Australia, it's just groundwater, where they sink a bore maybe 30 metres down and they just tap into the water that's just available. And you can sink a bore in your garden, for example, and get bore water. That you'll see signs in gardens where people are using bore water. So the difference for the average consumer is if you go to a supermarket and you have a look at a bottle of water, if it claims to be mineral water, it will tell you, because it's a legal requirement, that what the minerals are. Now, when you look at the average bottle of water, you'll find maybe 6 or 7 various minerals. They will tell you the minerals that they think you want to know about. I don't know if they're telling you the whole story, but for example, on our water, we have 23 of the 24 essential daily minerals, and we name all 23 of those minerals. And the volume of the amount of mineral in it, and for most of those minerals, they're in micrograms. They're very, very small amounts, but that's all your body needs. So the difference for people drinking water out of the tap is that water that's come out of the ground, even if it is just groundwater, it won't have been treated. In Australia, they can have up to 23 different chemicals that they use to treat water.
Mm-hmm.
So what comes out of your tap is not actually pure and clean. It's actually highly chemical treated water. And now you're also getting the other things that are going into water, like estrogen and other medical drugs that people take, as well as illicit drugs that people take that come out in their urine. And so those things are also present in our water now. And the most common one that you find and you can smell in some places where they use a lot of it is chlorine. And when you consider how much issue there is with people and their gut flora, chlorine is commonly used to kill bacteria in a swimming pool. I don't think it's got the ability to be able to determine whether your gut flora is good or bad and only take the bad stuff out. But mineral water doesn't have those sorts of chemicals in it, but it does have things that do affect your body. And for the most part, I would say, well, certainly for our mineral water, the effect is very positive. So people who are drinking mineral water are being mineralized. And that's something that is fairly well regarded, or recognised, I should say, now, is that we are existing with less than our best levels of minerals. So we are depleted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mineral water to improve your minerals.
So I had the privilege of having some of your water and tasting it and sampling it. So I have some here at home, and I must admit it's delicious. I haven't had tap water proper tap water. I don't drink proper tap water. I shouldn't say proper tap water because I don't even know where proper came in there. Tap water for quite some time. I've always had a water filter, but your water has this really. My body loved it, and there's no way to describe that. And you kindly sent us up some of your still mineral water because we had a dog that had just had a recent operation, and the dogs, I've never seen them go for water so quickly. It's almost like they had this innate knowing that
Thirst.
it was good for them.
Yeah, they had a deep thirst for good water. I know.
Absolutely.
We have a little cavie, and she had colitis, and took her to the vet, and she was investigated and all the rest of it, and there was supposed to be, she was going to be on medication forever, and I was like, well, no. I don't think so. And so we just changed her diet and started her on Aqui, and within 3 weeks she was right as rain.
Yeah.
No blood in her stool, and she was happy, and before you could tell she wasn't happy, she was uncomfortable, and I don't know whether she was in pain, but she was definitely uncomfortable because she's very expressive, this little dog. But yeah, so she was back to her happy, smiling, bouncy little self after 3 weeks, and we've never had an issue since. And I can say, well, my husband also experienced, he had ulcerated colitis, and so he was on medication and it wasn't improving. In fact, it was getting worse, and the symptoms were terrible for him. And so we did the same thing with him. We changed his diet and put him onto a strict intake of Aqui, and his recovery took a little bit longer. He was back to his normal bouncy self after about 2 months.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
Seriously, the body needs minerals. It needs really good water. We're majority of our body is water, and so it really matters what kind of water you take. And I think your body responds really, really well when you do drink the right kind of water.
Yeah. So I know that you're not, well, I'm assuming you're not a health professional I'm putting inverted commas up here, but you're obviously somebody who's very passionate about and done a lot of research around the water that you have available on your property. So is there a recommended daily amount of water that, like if we were having your mineral water, would it be a glass a day, or would we just be drinking it like we'd normally drink water? Is there any sort of recommendation around the best amount to have, and can we overdose on it?
Okay, so the recommended amount of water, it used to be 6 glasses, then it became 8 glasses, and then it became 10% of your body weight. So there's quite a bit of variation in what is medically recommended. But I think that when people go, oh, I'm not thirsty, they're wrong. Your body is always, prepared to drink water. But I don't think that you can, if you were drinking too much water, you would end up with something like cell saturation, but that wouldn't really be from drinking good quality mineral water, and even tap water. I don't think you could get to that point. I mean, I know some people who drink 3 to 4 litres a day, and I would imagine they must spend an enormous amount of time in the bathroom, but your body just expels what it doesn't need. And the interesting thing about it, you're right, I'm not a health professional, but I feel like I have done a thesis on water and on how water affects us and how your body uses water. The interesting part about it is that, and this is again not about my water, it's about any water that people will go to buy. Please look at the label. Please read the back of the label. Don't just grab it because it's cheap. if you want cheap, just drink the water out of the tap, right? That's the cheapest one you're going to get. It's not for free. You do get charged for water, but it's minimal cost. But because so many bottled waters, because there's no legislation in Australia on water, what you're drinking out of the tap is just filtered tap water. So do as you do, install a filter and you'll be having the same sort of water. Whereas if you read the label, if you see that it has high calcium, put it back on the shelf. And I can tell you, Coles spring water used to have label on it which showed that it had a higher magnesium to calcium ratio. And I would suggest to people who would say, oh, I can't afford your water, I would say, well, go into Coles and go and buy their spring water. They're not putting a label on it anymore, so I suspect that they've changed and they're probably just using groundwater and they're not testing it any longer. So they can't call it spring water, so that's why they've changed their label. But you want a higher magnesium to calcium ratio, particularly in Australia. We have a huge calcium deposits in our soil. We're eroded back to the calcium. Calcium is the mineral that hangs on. We need more magnesium than calcium. And again, I'm speaking directly about Australia because other countries I don't know about their soil composition, so I can't say anything about those. But in Australia, when you think there are shells on the top of Uluru, that just shows how eroded we are as a continent. And one of the reasons we're so eroded is because we have no other countries around us to protect us from the elements. So we've gotten the full blast of the winds and the rain, and the soil has washed away and eroded over time. But when you find high calcium in people's diets, unless they've got the other minerals that will help to direct calcium into the bones, you will find people who have arthritis, who have the calcification of their heart and calcification of their vascular system. So it is very important to make sure that you are getting, if you are drinking mineral water, to make sure that the magnesium level is higher than the calcium level, because magnesium is one of the minerals that helps to direct calcium into the bones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love that you said that and really stipulated that, because I think if we as consumers make informed choices when we're buying our products, so I think we had a brief chat before I hit record. One of my past partners was studying naturopathy at the time, and we became really aware of that. So we would make sure we were looking at the labels, and we would buy mineral waters that had, up to 20 plus minerals in them. And and there's so many things on the shelf that claim to be mineral waters, and you look at them, they've got like 4 minerals, and you think that's just tap water with bubbles in it. So having that knowledge really helps you to make really good informed purchasing choices. And I think back to my question before, mineral water, for some people, the good quality mineral water is, you can buy that and it can be $5-6 a bottle for a litre or more or less. It is the more expensive thing on the shelf. So my question to you would be, if I can my budget only allows me maybe 3 bottles of mineral water or whatever it might be, is it okay to be able to have like a glass of your mineral water a day and still have my tap water? Is that still going to benefit me?
Oh, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, Georgie, because sorry, but the problem is that tap water is doing less, I can't say more harm, but it's doing less good than what people believe. You may be hydrating, but you're hydrating with water that has got 23 in Australia anyway, allowed up to 23 chemicals in it. And I just don't think we're supposed to be having those chemicals. Whereas minerals in commercially available mineral water, and I make that clear that it's got to be commercially available. It has to have gone through analysis to show what those minerals are. So we've done some really extensive testing So I know what's in our water, but we've also done some extensive testing on other brands that have come in from overseas that are extremely popular. I won't name it, but
you can talk to me about that off air, because we do get
yeah,
some mineral water. Anyway.
yeah, because they're enormous companies, they're not single source water. So the minerals that are in their water are minerals that are not good for you, like heavy metals like arsenic and uranium. And this brand has 7 times more than what the Australian government permit. So we have to be aware of what you're consuming. Like, people have become aware now of, hidden sugar in their products that they buy off the shelf. And so we should also be aware of other ingredients. And the minerals in the water, in our water, it's a single source. On our website, we name everything that's in our water, and in the amounts. We also discuss what those minerals represent to people in real terms for their health and well-being. So if you have a glass, for example, someone who's taking a supplement, or say they're taking a protein shake in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
or a smoothie, the water becomes an ingredient. So if you were using our mineral water to have that supplement, or to have that smoothie in the morning, you would be getting a dose of minerals. You're not getting them in therapeutic levels, but you are, particularly the micro minerals, where you only need a little bit, just like a tiny bit. I actually think that that's probably a great way for people who have got, a budget that they're trying to stick to, a great way for them to be getting some minerals into their body. To then spend the rest of the day drinking tap water, well, that's why I say it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that those chemicals are doing us any good.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the filters that are commonly available, there's only 3 ways of removing fluoride from tap water. To be honest, what I suggest to people, if you're able, put a bucket outside and catch rainwater and run that through a filter, because it doesn't have any of the chemicals in it. And if you can filter out any of the air pollutants that are floating around that get caught up in rain, then you'd actually be doing yourself a quite good hydration with just drinking water. The people who have rainwater tanks are actually really lucky, because they can drink those sort of, that's lovely soft rainwater, and if it's run through a filter, it will remove dust particles and things like that. So
so the gold level for health would be to have all of your water intake a mineral water, where you can, if the budget allows. And then the next level down might be to have a glass of, or have it as part of your smoothie in the morning, maybe 2 or 3 glasses a day out of the recommended 8 to 12 that we're supposed to have, or whatever it is. And then maybe get a water filter. And then the sort of the bronze level would be maybe to have a bottle of mineral water on a really nice occasion, and get some filtered water, or put your bucket outside.
Put your bucket outside. With the heavy rain we had last night, you could have filled up several buckets.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things, and it does come down to budget. I mean, I plan in my next house that I build, I'm going to put a 5,000 litre water tank under the house, and I'm going to have the water tanker guy come and draw the water out and pump it into my holding tank of my house, and I'll have it directly piped into my kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's my water and I can do that. So for somebody who's watching, if you're building a house and you want to do it, contact me. But for the average person who's just trying to make some changes to try and give themselves, the best possible health that they can, then, you know, some changes are, you know, yes, get a bottle of our water and just have a glass in the morning. Because, for example, if you're taking a mineral supplement, minerals don't work in isolation. They all need to work with the other minerals to be able to do what they do. So like I was saying before about calcium, calcium needs magnesium to be able to be absorbed, but it's not only magnesium it also needs boron. It needs some of those micro minerals that I was talking about that we have, like for example, silica. People take silica, particularly if their hair or their nails are weak. They might start taking silica because it helps to improve the elasticity of your skin and your hair and your nails. But silica also needs to have magnesium, calcium, and you know, all of the minerals work together. They don't work in isolation. So if you can just have, even if it's one glass, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And if you can afford my water, then try and find a brand. As I said, Cold Spring, they used to have the label showing. Call up and ask why they don't do it anymore. You know, I was looking for a particular product because I wanted, this is before slight change of topic, I was looking for grass-fed products, and I phoned around. You know, they have phone numbers, they have customer inquiry numbers on products. Pick the phone up and ring. I was ringing New Zealand to ask them questions about a dairy product. So I think people, once they've made that decision, it's not just, oh, I've decided I'm going to eat more healthily, I'm going to become a vegan, I'm going to be only eat grass-fed meat, or I'm going to, you know, stop eating sugar. But all of those things, you know, we can do it, but we should do it by educating ourselves in the process and make inquiries. I have people who email me questions about, you know, do I think that my mineral water will help with this, that, and the other? I can only talk from personal experience because I'm not a health professional. But then at the same time, you know, if I want to know about health and food and how those things affect me, I'm probably not so inclined to go and talk to a GP. I would be inclined to go and talk to a naturopath or to a nutritionist, someone who has specialised their study in those things. I hold all of the people in medical fields in very high regard, but I also am very understanding that their specialty does not necessarily cover everything that I'm looking for answers to for my questions. So I can only talk about my water. I can't talk about everybody's water, but I have investigated some of them. And for a lot of the, actually it really is just tap water. So if it's filtered tap water, then it hopefully has gone through big industrial filters, which are capable of removing a lot of the toxic chemicals that you don't want to drink, but they don't add, and they shouldn't, because natural mineral water is far superior to anything that's come out of a factory anyway. But if you just don't want to have any of those added chemicals, then, you know, just tap water or bottled water, sorry, not tap water, bottled water off the shelf in the supermarket is probably the way to go.
Yeah, nice. So I really love what you're encouraging people there to do, is to take responsibility for their health and do their own research, and probably get curious and go down a couple of rabbit holes themselves and really discover what is going to be right for them and their ailment. And if you really are taking full responsibility and you have a health issue, and you know that, for instance, you mentioned, you know, silica is really good for your nails and your hair, and if you know that's something you need, well, then you will go and find the products that actually have that in combination with the other minerals that are going to help it. But you only do that through knowledge, and knowledge actually gives you the power to make fully informed choices. And I think that's really great advice, and encouraging people to not always rely on the experts, but do your own research and make really informed purchasing choices when you're, when you're buying things that are going to go into your body, this vehicle that you have for your entire life. So you really want to look after it. I want to switch angles a little bit here, because one of the things that really fascinated me about your story was not only that you happened to have a natural spring on your property, but then the mere fact of turning that natural spring into a business. Now that's got to come with challenges. That's got to come with, how did you do that? And, are you able to share, because I know my listeners, we have business owners, we have people that might have product ideas. So what were some of the emotional, mental, physical challenges that you sort of came up for you? And how did you move through them? What were some of the things that helped you get to where you are today? Because I'm a business owner. It's not an easy road.
No, it's not an easy road.
You're laughing.
We're still going through it. Okay, so how it started was that we were just drinking the water ourselves, and because the house that we have is quite large, we have a lot of house parties, and so everybody who was coming up, we have long lazy lunches and long drawn out dinners, and so drinking a lot of wine and really having a lovely time together, our group of friends. No one was waking up with hangovers, basically. So everyone was drinking lots of Aqui, lots of our water, because it wasn't named at that point, it was just our water. And we have an urn in our kitchen which takes about 15 litres, and by the end of an evening, it was always empty. So people were drinking plenty of water. So whether that was the part of it, but we would wake up in the morning, people would be tired because we'd kicked on until 2 a.m, but no one had hangovers. And so we started to realise that actually it's the water. And we had the mineral analysis had already been done, because we wanted to make sure that what we were drinking, that there was no nasties in it. And it took us, around 3 to 4 months of reading the analysis, seeing what was in it, checking what those things were, what those minerals were, to make sure that all those minerals were ones that were good minerals. And also then my husband, his name's Olaf, by the way. So Olaf would be looking at other commercially available, commonly available mineral waters that you could buy in Australia or overseas, to see what their mineral content was. And there's nothing he loves better than a good graph. So he's seeing their mineral content and their nitrates, and the nitrates are impurities. So he was checking all of these things, and then we started to kind of realise is that our water is really, I can't say the best in the world, because there's no such thing. We can't really say it, but actually it is.
Why not? We'll say it.
It's got the best mineral levels. It doesn't have necessarily the highest magnesium or the highest silica or the highest bicarbonate, but the levels that does have are really good in comparison with anything else that's commercially available. That tastes nice, because there are some waters out there and they have really high magnesium. They don't taste very good. It just tastes like soapy water. And then you've got others that might have much higher bicarbonate, but nothing else. So we've got really good levels of everything. And so by this time, it's probably like 4 to 6 months down since we first realised that it was mineral water and not just, plain water. And so a friend of ours said, "So are you going to bottle it?" And we were like, I was like, "No." And Olaf was like, "Yes." And I was like, "What?" He's such an entrepreneur. He's originally Norwegian, and he was previously married to another Australian lady who he met in Norway. He introduced meat pies into Norway. So he built a business manufacturing meat pies and was selling them into service stations and things like that. Then they eventually came back to Australia, so that business went to the side. But he has that entrepreneurial spirit. He wants to be his own boss. He's dedicated, and the fact that Aqui, that this spring happened to be on our property was just like the icing on the cake, right? So he went ahead and did the investigation of how we were going to do it, and initially, because we were only bottling the water still, we set up the equipment in the garage. So it was like we were like a little boutique winery where we were just bottling the water ourselves. And that's how it started. And in the beginning, we were very passionate about selling it into health food stores because the mineral content was so good, in such good balance, and those minerals were so good for you. And as time went by, I'm the one doing the sales. I'm selling out of the back of my car, and just traveling around trying to get people interested. Water, I always joke about water. I say the market's saturated, but it is saturated with a lot of sort of ordinary product. And then as time went by, we started looking at doing carbonation, but originally we were like, oh my God, we never do carbonation. It's pure as it is. It's just leave it the way it is, the way the earth intended. Well, yes, but after a while you suddenly realize, running a business is that we had to diversify our product to be able to get it out to a broader market. And people who go to cafes and restaurants rarely want still water, unless it's just tap water.
Yeah, I think I spoke to you about my partner and I. We don't drink alcohol, so good quality mineral water is our vice. So we're quite happy to spend a lot of money on mineral water because we will sit down at night and we'll have these beautiful glasses of mineral water. It's almost, and I think you said, it becomes a little bit more fun when there's some bubbles in it.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest, and for people who aren't drinking alcohol, there is no downside to pouring beautiful sparkling water like mine into a wine glass. And
that's how I drink it.
Yes, and just enjoy.
And sometimes I might even put a drop of essential oil in there and have an orange flavored, pure essential oil, and have an orange flavored mineral water. So
nice. Well, because we've got a little orchard, we've got fruit trees. So during the winter, we'll put a slice of lime into it and slice of lemon. And then in the summertime, we can do like a squeeze of mandarin or,
beautiful.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Absolutely delicious.
So your entrepreneurial journey is really interesting. So you have this friends say, are you going to bottle it? One of you says yes, one of you says no. And then Olaf decides to make it into a business. So you get it and you're starting to bottle it. You're setting it up in your garage. And then now you said you're selling it from the boot of your car, basically. You're bootlegging around the countryside.
And I still do. Right? This is how small we are. It is my husband and myself.
Yeah.
And he does the majority of the work where you need to sit behind a computer, and I do the majority of sales, and between the two of us we deliver out of the boot of our cars.
Yeah.
So
I want to make this really clear to people, because a lot of people think that, okay, I have a product, I have a service, and it's going to be really glamorous, and all I have to do is just put it out there and people will come. And people don't realize that there's this work that is involved in building your business. And I'm not going to call it the hustle, because it's not the hustle. It's more the it's more the building awareness of what you have to your potential clients or purchasers, customers. So, you're sharing here that you're still a small business, you've got an amazing product. How do you maintain a level of, let's say, I'm going to say sanity? Because, at the moment, for those, not sure when this will go to air, but at the moment we're sort of, riding this COVID-19, uh, pandemic at the moment. And I know that your product's going to restaurants. Restaurants are all closed down. So
Yep.
how do you navigate that mentally and emotionally and physically? What are some of the things that you do as a business owner to maintain your sanity through all of this? Besides the wine. I'm waiting for you to say I just drink heaps of mineral water.
Well, oh God, Georgie, look, I feel like there's just so many people who are going through, deep emotional upheaval because of the fear that has been created over this situation. And being a small business owner, I really empathise with people who are worried about, how they're going to pay their bills. And like I'm chasing up customers of mine who owe me invoices, and I feel bad to send it to them because I know that their businesses are, if not completely stopped, like with a cafe or a restaurant, have really significantly wound down, and also because we're going into the colder times. For me, for water anyway, it's people drink less water in the winter, although they actually should be drinking more, but they don't. So it's really tough times. And I mean, I have 5 children, so I can't dwell for too long on anything negative, because I've got three who live with us, and the 2 big girls are not. And 4 of them are my stepchildren too, so it's week on, week off with them anyway. But I have my daughter as well, but I have her all the time. And
How do you manage that? What do you do for yourself? How do you manage the business, the change in the economic change that we've found ourselves in, being a mother, being a partner, running a property? People are going to go, how does this woman do this? Wonder Woman, how do you do it? What's the secret thing? What do you tell yourself? What's going on in your head? Lots of questions there.
Look, I just don't. I'm not the kind of person who thinks that worrying about something is going to fix it. I'm the sort of person who gets up and gets on with it. Yeah. Because I think if I stopped, I'd probably never get out of bed again. So I don't have that choice. Yeah. But I'm seriously, I don't think anybody who works for themselves, if they've already been working for themselves for a while, expect it to be a job where you start at 9 a.m. and you finish at 5 p.m, and then you go home and you have a normal life. When you have your own business, you are on all the time. And you've got to be able to put multiple hats on all the time as well, because sometimes you're the administrator, sometimes you're the salesperson, sometimes you're trying to work out how to use a computer piece of software that you just spent a lot of money buying because you were convinced it was going to be the best thing ever. Thanks, Olaf. It was not, and I hate it. But anyway.
We're recording, no.
And it's really good if you have a partner who is really calm and sort of gentle-natured, because I'm really, oh my God, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to go here, we've got to go there. And he's like, yeah, it's okay, don't worry.
All right.
So because he's calm and I'm high energy, it works very well for us, because as a team, as a husband and wife, we are working together all the time. So we are a very good balance to each other. If you're working like in the way that we do, whereas he sits at the desk on the computer most of the time, and I'm the one out and about doing the sales most of the time. But we do swap over sometimes too. Sometimes he'll be out and about and he'll drive past a little cafe and think, that looks good, and stop and pull in. Of course, he can't do that now. But the other thing is too, is that we are lucky in that what we sell, we don't actually manufacture it. It's a gift. So we don't have the overheads of people who are buying ingredients and they then have to create a product out of. We only have to bottle our product. So we are very lucky in that regard. So our costs are always only the dry goods, because the product that we put inside of it is for all intensive purposes, even though the property that comes up on costs a fortune to pay and maintain, but the water itself is free.
Yeah.
So
I just want to reiterate some of the things that you say that help you. And one of them is, it sounds like using the momentum of, just not, I don't want to encourage people not to stop, but using the momentum of doing one thing and allowing that to give you the energy for the next thing, because if you don't do that, you don't get out of bed, basically, is what you're saying. And also I love that you say there that you've got someone that you're working with that complements you. So not everyone has that privilege and that benefit. So for anyone that is looking to get into business or is in business and doesn't have that, it might not be a business partner, it might be a mentor, it might be a coach, it may be a confidant. It
might be a spouse. It could be for someone who wants to start their own business. You need to have a spouse who is encouraging and supportive and who can pick up the slack for you in other areas of your life. So particularly, for someone who is young and single without any of the extras that we have as we get older, then, maybe doing it by themselves and starting by themselves, all they need is either an idea and capital. You need more money than you think you need in the beginning. You think, I can get by.
Wise advice.
But really, double what you think it is, and then double it again. But but if you're down the track, if you have a family, if you have obligations, financial obligations, make sure your spouse can meet those financial obligations, or you still keep working and you run your little business, or you work your idea out and you get it all going before you step away from the job that's helping you meet your financial obligations, because that is the biggest killer of any business, is not being able to pay your bills. If you have started something and you haven't got either finances behind you or an ongoing income while you get it all going, you are making a bad decision.
Yeah, you're putting too much. You're putting extra stress on already a stressful situation when you're starting out. So
Also, stress your spouse to pick up the slack in the meantime. Because like they say, most businesses don't turn a profit for 2 years. Try 6. Try 6. Still, I had my accountant call me up to say, I need to talk to you about your finances, Dayle. I'm, a bit concerned. I was like, really? Why? And he said, well, I've done all the calculations and it shows, you only did a profit last year of, $28,000. And I was like, really? Oh my God, we made that much? And he was like, oh, really? That's how much you made? I said, yeah. He goes, I thought you were making a lot more than that. And I was like, no, we're not. But what was double from the year before?
Yeah.
And if
I think that putting
it
that
would have been double that again.
sorry, we had a little bit of I overspoke over you then. We had a little bit of time lapse. Putting that realistic spin on it is really helpful for people to see what really happens when we start a business. We think that, you know, within the first few years we're going to make millions of dollars, and some a lot of money, maybe not millions, and some businesses can, but be prepared and have contingencies for the what ifs, just in case your product isn't as well received as what you thought it would be, or maybe a pandemic hits when you just launch your business. So have your backup plans and have your contingencies in place. So as we round out this conversation, it's been so informative, especially around understanding more about water, but also around the journey of how your business came to being, and how that idea went from inception to now, bootlegging it around the state out of the boot of your car. And I'm sure as you keep going and you keep the momentum, that the business will continue to grow. What would you say as a parting comment or parting word of advice for our listeners from anything we've spoken about today, whether it be from the health perspective of water, or whether it be from advice around, somebody who maybe have that entrepreneurial spirit, or maybe thinking of starting a business, already in business? What would your word of advice be, your final thing that you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh my gosh.
Big question.
I need another podcast to answer that. My final thing is related to doing business. You need to make sure that you have a fantastic bookkeeper who keeps you on track in your business. And on top of that is, don't start a business to just make money. Start a business that is one of the reasons you get out of bed in the morning, and that you spend 18 hours thinking about, because it is going to consume your life. If it's any good, it should consume your life. Your friends will get sick of hearing about it. Your family will tolerate it. Your kids will hate you for it sometimes. But you've got to have passion. If you haven't got passion to do it, it will become a bugbear, and you'll wish you'd never started it. We don't have the sort of success in our business that we hope to eventually have yet. But the journey of it has been remarkable, and my learning of water and of mineral water and various minerals, not just in water but minerals in general, I love that learning curve, and I love being able to tell people who talk to me about something, and I'll say, well, have you tried doing this? Or people who've got a really high blood pressure, it's like, we'll start taking magnesium. That's what it does. It relaxes the muscles. And I love the knowledge that I've acquired. I love the people who I get to talk to who are more knowledgeable than me and who share their knowledge. So really passion. If you're passionate about a paperclip, damn it, it'll be the best damn paperclip ever.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful word of advice. And I really love what you're saying there. And one of the things I just want to finish up on, which is I just want to make sure people don't miss this little bit of gold that you just delivered. And that is that it's not about, the business is never about the business and the money and the end result. It's about who you become and what you'll learn along the way that builds you into being an amazing human. So thank you so much for sharing that piece of gold. It's been an absolute delight talking with you today. And thank you also for your amazing water and being able to take what is available only on your property and being able to share that with the world. And I am an advocate. I have tasted it and it's beautiful and the dogs love it. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today, Dayle.
Oh, thanks, Georgie. It was lovely to meet you.
Today is turning into the most curious adventure I have ever had.